We're doing it episode 1 of the Bund Frequency, man. It's a pleasure. Great to have you here. So today we're sitting with Matt. Oh, my bad. First of all, we need to introduce ourselves, my name is Tyre. I'm the host, and
my name is Alex. I'm going to be the co-host.
Incredible. Today we're going to be sitting with Matt, who is an artist, a designer, and interestingly, an HR guy. Now, he describes himself like that, not me. And, when you think about this, it already doesn't make sense. So we're going to unpack all of this together. And let's start with like a basic introduction. Like, who is Matt Barnes Anderson?
Benjamin.
Benji.
who is Matt Barnes? I don't know. I guess I came to China like 10 years ago. Before that, I was an HR guy, and I think the reason I describe myself like that is that I never really felt like an HR guy. I felt like just somebody. I never knew what I wanted to do as a kid. Ended up doing about 3 or 4 different things. Ended up in HR and seemed to be quite good at it. And it landed me a role here. So I came here as an HR guy. But actually being here, there was a whole lot of other stuff that opened up. And then what was a hobby, doing art, started to just turn into more like it started to blow up a little bit. And then it became much more like, it started to move up on my LinkedIn profile as something that I was defining myself as. And now it's probably the thing that I talk more about than the HR side. But that mix, it doesn't all make sense, but that mix is quite cool because it gives me different perspectives on stuff. So so I'm settled in China now, 10 years and counting. I'm married. We've got like more cats than we know what to do with. That kind of I guess that's the shortest version of my story. Even probably 6 months ago, I would have said just artist or artist HR guy, but actually it's starting to move into design, and the more it becomes like the more work that comes in, the more it drags into this kind of other field, which is like helping companies design stuff. And I don't know why that started, but it's emerging.
Right.
So you're in China already 10 years.
Yeah.
But when you just came here, have you thought that you're going to stay here so long?
No.
It
was like 3. I mean, when I came here, I knew nothing about China at all. Like I knew where it was, but like the culture and the history, like knew so little.
I know another example of a guy who came here without knowing anything about China.
Well, I mean, I knew some things. I knew a couple of things.
Kung Fu.
True, which is what most kids in the West kind of knew about China, was like all the movies that we saw growing up. It's like, oh, China's going to be this, it's going to be that. And everything else that we saw in the news, actually, it's kind of like pretty much the same.
Can you do Kung Fu?
Do I do Kung Fu?
Yeah.
I like to think that I do. So I do now. I do Tai Chi, which is like a much more simplified form. Not necessarily because of the martial arts part, just like as a form of like meditation and things like that.
Yeah.
But I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu though. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So guess I fill my void in that way.
Yeah.
Fill my void in that way.
Is this similar or not?
I think it's different. I like Jiu-Jitsu now because it's a game of strategy. So the goal of Jiu-Jitsu is not to harm someone. It's to defend yourself, to kind of like diffuse the whole situation. And shout out to Bushido, by the way. I remember Solo was teaching a class and he was training these blue belts. They were about to have a competition. And he kept using the word like, go into a stance and like try to talk the person out of the fight. Like, hey, bro, let's not do this. Yeah. Let's not do this. The whole time you're submitting this person, but you're like, let's not do this. Let's not do this. Let's, try to talk sense into them.
I'm not legally liable for this.
So I like that aspect of jiu-jitsu in that there's a lot of control if you are in a situation where you're faced with anything that could possibly harm you. But at the same time, the idea is not to hurt someone. It's to just, hey, let's be adults here. You know, especially when you're from a position of strength. It's easy for you to, I can dominate this person, but I'm on top of them. I'm just saying, hey, like, let's not do this, bro. Like, I'm sorry. Let's just talk. Let's just talk and everything like that. So I do like that part about jujitsu, and just the fact that it's like figuring out moves, when we're sparring and things like that. This person is in the positional guard, for example. How do I get past this guard into breaking this defense that this person has set up? And at the same time, they're thinking, what's the next thing I could possibly do to make sure that even if he beats this one, I get his back or something. So
Yeah.
it's a very interesting form of like martial arts that
Yeah.
I found really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interested. Do you do any of this?
I did do kung fu once. So I went with my wife, and she's really good at yoga, right? So it's all about like she's really good at knowing how to control different parts of her body. I have no idea how to control any parts of my body. So like
Wait, but do you do yoga?
No.
I can't.
No, you can't.
I did yoga. I tried to do yoga this morning on the way here. Not on the way here, before I came here.
Yeah.
But like I just like I feel when I do yoga like I'm like 65. Like it's like I feel like I'm made out of wood and I'm just being like crumpled. But when you do kung fu, it's like knowing how to like move your weight and move your control your strength. Like I can't do that. I'm either
Right.
like I'm one punch and done. That's me.
Right. We actually were at a party that they organized at home, and we're playing this game, the one where it was like all the couples. So he and his wife, she would have to throw this a ring or something, and you'd have to catch and everything. Let's
Wait,
just say he
while doing
struggled.
yoga?
No. This is like just as a game, as a game.
Maybe it's
game.
part of yoga session.
Well, I don't know. Hopefully someday we're still gonna be able to come and have like she has this sound bath,
Oh yeah,
the bowls and everything, which
Yeah.
I'm still willing to try. Still willing to try. Yeah, interesting life in China, man. One question that I have for you is, what is something, in your opinion, about living here that people outside just wouldn't understand?
I think like I think the power of like the network and I guess collective thinking. But by that I mean that like you kind of tap into this. This sounds bad, right? But it's I'll recover it a little bit later. But you're like tapping into this like matrix, and what that means is it's super super easy to get things done, because as long as you know two or three people, which is very easy to do, then actually that opens up so many doors and opportunities, and like you almost don't have to work that hard to find stuff. It's almost harder to not do. It's harder to be on your own, harder to be like isolated than it is probably when I was back home. And I had no idea about that, because my perception was just, I said I didn't know anything about Chinese culture. My perception was that it would just be a little bit more like guarded, and everyone would be like, it was difficult to know people, difficult to like to make connections and stuff. But like totally the opposite. I found that the easiest part here. I'm a massive introvert, so left to my own devices, I could stay inside for weeks. But actually, living here just drags me outside all the time, and it's great. Like, that's the thing that I've found the most unexpected. Plus, like, it's fun, right? I had no idea how fun it would be.
Right.
Like, yeah, just I thought that it would be, the most. I planned to come here for 3 years. I thought it'd be like 3 years of just serious hard work and study and just knuckle down. But
then what changed? Why you decided to stay longer?
I made that call real quick after getting here. It was like I came for 3 years, and it was probably within about 6 months I thought, no, actually, that I'm staying. And reason it was difficult is I came with a partner, so we were together for like 6 years before or 5 years before she came here. And so not going back was basically like, oh, am I going to cancel this relationship? So that was more difficult than staying. Staying was, I think it's like a bit like the energy, like just nothing nothing felt difficult. You know, there's some challenges, but they were kind of even after the worst day at work, or you have to. Some days you have a real like tough time, but then it would just bounce back the day after, and you could have the best day the day after. So like it was just that variation. You know, some days are 2, some days are 9, but before every day was like a 5.5, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So like, yeah.
Interested. I kind of had a different experience in terms of like why I chose to stay. I think a lot of the friends that we came together, like the first month, were already like, nah, I'm out. Like I checked out. For me, I think it was the difficulty of coming to a country where English was not spoken. I'd
Yeah.
never been to a country where, like, to some extent, English was like, everywhere. But when I came to China, I was like, oh my God. I didn't realize that people didn't speak English almost at all. And I did not come to a big city. I was in Nanchang, which is in Jiangxi province, down south.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not country, but it's like, it's still, people are still very traditional in a lot of things that they do. And I remember thinking, I was like, okay, if I can make something happen here, then I can make it happen anywhere else, because anywhere else is just going to be easier, And I think that was why I decided to like, okay, let's really lock in and try to make, something out of this place.
Did you guys meet in Shanghai? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
we actually met in Shanghai.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the same story. I came here for a year, and I've been here already 7 years.
Yeah.
Just because when you get into the culture and you start understanding how everything operates and works in China, you like it. And comparing to other places, other countries you've been to, you live in, you think, wow, that's actually a place where you can settle. That's what that was my case. I thought, okay, I'm gonna stay 1 year. Then it was okay, maybe one more, and it's been 7. I'm like, wow, and the time flies by like that.
Yeah. I don't know about like where you guys are from. British in Britain, people don't talk about British culture a lot. It's not like it's not something people are self-aware of particularly. So it's something that people don't really. You're not aware of it growing up as in like what the culture is. I find people here are the culture is very important, and people do talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
So once you learn about it, and it takes time to learn, it's kind of like a skill that only really applies here. So once you put all that effort into understanding it, you think, oh, well, I'm on the travelator, I'm on the runway. I don't really want to get off, because if I get off, I've lost that.
Yeah.
And it'll take the time to reconnect. Whereas I think if you went to some countries, it's not that difficult to plug in, and because you can just kind of wing it.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's one of the benefit of being here, especially now in this time, is there's like perspective that I think we have that nobody else, well, I mean, outside of China, would have, just because we've been through like a certain amount of time that I think people who came here post-COVID might not even have that experience that we've had, of like, we've experienced this country like move through different phases, and that's just kind of like informed.
That's the thing, because China is moving so fast forward that you see changes every year, and it changes so fast. Like if you look back 5 years, it was so different. And that's the thing about all my friends, for example, who went back to Europe, they came back to China, and they're saying like, wow, it changed so fast. And they kind of like it. That was also one of the reasons why I'm staying here, because it's not, I would say the word stagnated. It's still moving forward all the time. Whereas in Europe, it's kind of
shots fired.
Same.
Shots fired.
Yeah,
shots.
It was the same 5 years ago. It's kind of the same 10 years ago. Of course, it's changing, but you can see the difference between China and Europe, for example.
Yeah. Well, like I mean, 10 years. I can think of like when I got here, people were like, it came in 2016. And people say, "Man, you missed the Wild West days."
Everybody's saying like that. Yeah.
It's like, well, when was that? And they were like, last year. It's like, okay, so I'm now in this kind of post Wild West era. And then that was obviously we then had the pandemic, which changed. That was then a different time, because it was I wasn't. It wasn't like so easy to go traveling and stuff, which was why a lot of people were here. And then once everything's kind of rebounded from that, it's then a new time period, and like that. So in 10 years, it's changed more than like 30 back home. I still go back, and people are like still live in the same house, go to the same restaurant that they did 10 years ago. And I can't. I don't think anywhere that or any place that I would visit 10 years ago when I got here, I don't think any of them are still here. I think they're all
Yeah.
gone, and they've now like there's probably been like 3 lifetimes almost of social spaces and restaurants and shops that have just like been and gone in that time period. It's mad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Which kind of fits into, the bigger idea of like where things are going anyways, is that things here move really fast, and people have to kind of adapt to like the times. Which brings me to the next concept that I want us to discuss. This is on a much more professional topic. As an HR person, the idea of a team, a cross-functional team. You've experienced teams, you've seen how you've hired people for organizations and things like this. What makes a team actually work? Like what is that thing that makes a cross-functional team work? And for people who don't know what a cross-functional team is, this is just a collection of individuals with different skill sets that works together in such a very effective way, that they're able to achieve a business objective or a corporate goal. So what exactly is that? What makes a team work?
I think the I'll deal with an obvious one first that like I think most HR people would say is like you need to know what that objective is, and it's actually it's surprisingly hard to do, and to actually set out something real clear with confidence. You say, no, that's what we're all working for. The reason that's important is that you need something where, like, unless you're going to hold it all together with constant specific instructions all the time, which isn't a good team, then people need to know, well, what do I do when there's no, when I wake up in the morning I'm not getting micromanaged. What's the kind of the underlying purpose? You got to have that. I think then the next bit after that is you need to have a sense of what your role is, but also what other people's role are. So again, like really easy to write out roles and responsibilities, but actually I think like thinking about like, okay, well, what's my relationship like with these other people? Why do I need them? Why do they need me? And how can I help them is also real important, because it's super easy to get tension and friction when you're in that when there's a sense of competition or there's a sense of failure or blame. You got to try and insulate a team from that, where they've got to be afraid of it because they don't want it to happen to the team, but they don't want it to get to the point where it's like, I'd rather have a fall guy. So that help each other bit. It's like you see it in sports, right? Where it's like, there is no one player who can win a game single-handedly. Peak Messi could occasionally do that, but he was supported by, an incredible set of players at Barcelona. And you could put him into a weak team, and unless they're doing that, he's not going to be able to fix that. So it's like that balance of, sometimes if my role is to support, I need to support. Sometimes I might need to get involved in, like, I might find myself in a goal scoring position I've got to finish. But it's like, you need to know that it's not all about you, and it's actually about making sure that the team wins. So I think beyond that, I mean, I've worked in cross-functional teams. There's cross-functional, cross-cultural, both interesting. Whenever I've worked the reason I don't see myself as an HR guy is because I try and always just put myself in the position of the people that I'm trying to help. So I'll be like, well, I'm a business guy that knows a bit about people and culture and structures and processes and stuff.
Right.
If there's an IT problem or let's say a selling stuff problem, I want to help with that, and that's my goal. Not, I'll just tell me if you want to hire or fire someone. And I think each person's going to bring their own thing to that. So yeah, my expertise might be people, but someone else's might be more commercial than I am, or might understand how the marketing and PR world works. Well, actually, we're just adding different perspectives, and there's no reason why they can't interact. And where we've got those, if we've got differences of opinion, then we can, if we respect each other, try and help each other for whatever that goal is, then it's actually quite easy to reconcile that, or at least decide, well, we've would agree to disagree. So I kind of, I've that's a long way of saying it, but it's almost like a bit of humility, a bit of like with a mix with confidence, and just an attitude towards like being helpful.
Interested. I like the part where you mentioned about having the attitude and just being helpful. Because in my corporate days, did a lot of work around management consulting as well. I was very lucky to work in the department where a lot of the coaching programs that we were giving to executives were mostly mid-level to like high-end executives. And one of the biggest things that just kept coming up in conversations was, how do I get my people to do what I want them to do? Sometimes it's like financial incentives are not enough. Other times it's just maybe like you were saying something about cross-cultural as well, which I think a lot of people, for people who don't know what that means, actually, I would like you to explain what that is. What is a cross-cultural team?
Well, culture could be anything from organization culture to national culture, and even within that, you could have subcultures, right? You could have culture, youth culture. You could have you could have Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, boomers. Might all have different subcultures.
Is
So
that an actual thing now? This like Gen Z culture?
I mean, yeah.
yeah, 6, 7.
Gen Z culture?
Like, yeah. Do you know what 6'7" means? Do you see?
I don't.
You
I
see?
don't. What is 6'7"?
I have no idea. I just heard about it. Like Gen Z knows it. Like I
Yeah.
don't know.
It doesn't mean anything. It's a line from a I don't know the name of the guy, but it's a line from a song, and because it doesn't mean anything, as I understand that people just say it to confuse people. So it's like it's like postmodern slang, right? Where it has no meaning.
Ah, okay. Right.
So you see?
Well, 6'7" it is. 6'7" it is. But yeah, going back to the idea of the cross-cultural team, just expand
So what
more
is it?
on that.
So I guess if a culture is like, if you real simply, it's almost like a shared group of beliefs and opinions, and that would determine the way people operate. So that where that might differ by age is people might have a different. Say if I'm like an older generation where I was brought up in post-war austerity, I might have a different value, different understanding of how to spend money than someone who's grown up in a more affluent time, right? Yeah. So when you then put that in a work context, it might be that you get certain types of behaviors because of they belong to that group or that subset. So and that could apply to different national cultures, different national cultures is the obvious one. So when you mix that together, it's potentially super powerful, because if you've got any kind of diversity of approach that comes from culture, great if you can harness it, but also it's super risky because real easy to get friction. And particularly if you get into things that are difficult, like religious beliefs and how people view like all the isms, like that could be hard, right? And even then, just different attitudes can gum up a team or gum up an organization. I don't think it should be done like that. I've got these values. These people think it should be done like that. They've got their values. And how do you reconcile all of that? So I think like that the half the role of HR, although sometimes it's not that obvious, is to try and get all that stuff to mesh, identify where they are, know where the friction is, and then go, right, this is how we can like manage the conflict in the right way.
Interesting. Do you have any questions for that before I move to the next one?
Yeah, well, I think we can move.
Right. Because the idea of just, some of the clients that we talk to when we're trying to have a conversation around, some of their creative problems, and we're trying to come up with some strategy, which one of those clients, like, of is just the fact that this is a Chinese company that's trying to go abroad, and their requirements for success. It just depends on how effective their team will be or has been, which clearly, because they've had all that problems, just meant that the team wasn't as effective as it should have been. So I think it's a really interesting concept for a lot of more businesses
I can give you a
to,
practical example, right?
yeah.
Because I do quite a lot of stuff on cultural, let's say like harmonization, right? When this is because like for my 10 years of being here, most of the issues I've seen are where you've just got simple like differences in approaches, and but it's not when I came out, people train me in like, don't Chinese culture's status and face are important, so don't shout and scream at someone in a meeting, right? And you get that trained. It's like, okay, I get it, it's obvious, right? And so I won't do that. What you don't realize is actually all like how subtle some of those situations are, and then the nuances, right? So a good example I often talk to people about is logic. So slight difference between Eastern and Western logic comes from different places. So you got Western logic comes from like Greek and Roman philosophy, and it's like,
Yeah.
and through the Enlightenment period, and it's like if X equals Y, then whatever, right? So you're looking for that linear thing. Whereas Eastern culture, Eastern logic with that like Taoist base where everything's like harmonious. You never really have two things can exist at the same time. Like it's and it's more about a balance, and everything can be contextual. So what you get something like an interview or a presentation, right? So someone with this kind of like more fluid logic tries to deliver a business case to somebody who's looking for that real clear line. So I'll say to people like, like literally down to the first slide. So in the first slide, don't organize your information like this because you'll just confuse people who are looking at like a Western logic, and they won't tell you. They'll just get annoyed and they'll get frustrated, but they don't know why that's happening. They just think that they just think you're crazy. And it's like, it's real simple stuff like that where you think, well, across the course of like a company trying to like, let's say they're trying to expand into Europe and they're talking to suppliers and distributors, and like the number of opportunities that they'll miss because they've just structured the information wrong in that pitch, or they don't know how to read the cues of like, well, how do this guy's frustrated? Why is it because like there's some other issue? Because they don't know. It could be simple just presentation logic.
Right.
And that's something actually a lot of people don't understand. When I was also studying project management, we had that topic about the difference between the mindset in the West and East, where in the West it's pretty straight line, where in the East it's more curved. You go left, right, up and down, and you have to keep that in mind, especially when you pitch something or you have a project like cross-cultural project, you have to be aware of that, like the cultural differences between countries. And that's something that you don't know first, but when you get deeper, especially living in China, you start understanding it and you see like how different people think and do things.
I mean, I also still think, despite the difference in like thought process and everything, there's still room for like optimization on both sides, which just comes down to like reviewing processes. Oh, how can we optimize our system to, get to the results faster? Or how can we create an environment where the people that work here feel like they're a part of something and they're able to contribute. They don't feel like they need to run everything by their manager or something like that. So it's also, it can be a double-edged sword in terms of these differences that we're talking about, more specifically for companies that want to go abroad, because repeatedly what we found is that a lot of these companies would take the Chinese Eastern way of doing business, which once again, it works in the context of where it belongs, But then when you take that approach and go into North America, for example, it's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Just the same way as, if a business from North America is like coming to China, it's like there are things that you have to change just because of the cultural differences that exist within these two places.
You have to make compromises as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're like we were talking before about like designing interfaces. So if you want to design a menu on an app, there's you can't design for both Western readers and Eastern users, because the way that they want to see that information presented is different. So you have to make a decision in the market. But I think you can learn from both. So like there are benefits to having like that that kind of balanced and harmonious approach, which I actually think a lot of Western companies could learn from. Likewise, sometimes here you can help find that route through that, just because not everything needs to be balanced all the time. And I actually think like sometimes being able to switch between the two systems is quite helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question about this, and then we'll go to the next thing. For a young person who's about to come out of college, just finished their uni, the good grades and everything, which is more important, to have talent or attitude?
Where are they?
Like in terms of space? Anywhere in the world, talent or attitude? Which one is... I got him. It's difficult.
It is difficult. Because if you have a talent that's unsuitable, no amount of attitude's necessarily going to... If you need to know you need to be aware of where you are and what you're doing. So like, and I think for talent, can it be separated from attitude, right? Is the first thing. Because sometimes like you have to have the desire that you want to grow a particular skill. So that kind of, the attitude plays in that, like, what is my potential and can I then realize it? Because if you're just coming out of college, the likelihood is your first job's going to be crap, right? Yeah. It's like very few people are going to get the internship or the land on their feet in a grad scheme at a great company doing exactly what they want. And usually those people are going to be rich enough that they've got enough. Yeah. They've got enough like reserves to be able to get through it. So I think for most people, you have to have the like self-confidence and you got to work at it and be prepared to like just get punched in the face a few times. And like I mean, in my life, I had about at least 6 or 7 times where I was like, "What am I doing? I've literally ruined my life." And I was, and I had a relatively safe upbringing. So that is really, really important. But like, undoubtedly, I think personally, I think everybody has got a talent. It's just a case of like, can you find the right time and place to use it? And do you know what it is? Like, I always think like who knows? I could have been an amazing bobsled, right? But I've never been anywhere near a mountain range. So I've never been in a situation where I've thought, oh, I enjoyed that. Right. I'm good at it. And it gives me a buzz to do it. So there's a massive element of like luck. And so I guess you need attitude to try and find those experiences and to just get on a bobsled. Yeah. But like, yeah, like if you haven't got the skills, like I'm never going to be a yoga instructor. And I know that. I've tried it. I'm terrible at it. But like, I haven't got that talent. But yeah, equally. So I guess I've like, the answer is both and neither. Reason I didn't want to say attitude, and it probably is attitude, because probably it is. The answer is probably much more about like the mental discipline to do it. I think the reason I don't like attitude is that attitude can be used against you. So like if you don't,
like being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas talent that's less likely to happen, because if people think they can develop you and benefit themselves, they're more likely to do that. Attitude does get you into like a servant mindset potentially. So I'm wary to say that's what I'd recommend. But yeah, it's that, like, I think it's that combination, but both are important.
Right.
Yeah, but we have like we see more cases. For example, if you're very talented, um, you like your attitude can be not that important because, for
Yeah.
example, first of all, people treat you by your skills and how talented you are. And let's say if you're a dick but you're talented, people will still kind of
Yeah, yeah,
accept
yeah.
Yeah.
it because you're very talented.
Yeah.
But those
So
people that are so talented that they can just get away with being a dick are quite rare, right?
Do you know anybody who's like that? Like in real life?
Uh, no. Like,
Yeah.
and I think because like look and relationships are real important because if you're like, there probably isn't. If you just like took everything else off the table and just sat people next to each other on accordance of ability, right? People at like the very elite and the very good, there's probably not that much difference between
Difference.
them. So
Yeah.
if you look at like elite sport and maybe like the second and third tiers in the sport, they would still be like 100 times better at that sport than me, right? So like that like the distance from me is vast. So they are like so they have that talent,
Yeah.
but then there's like the difference between the people that get to the very top and the people who don't quite make it. Could be like speed of thought, just a slight like gap in like one attribute that just
Yeah.
doesn't get you there.
Right.
So I think if you are a dick, you've got to be prepared for the fact there might be someone who's just as good or almost not like maybe they're not quite as good as you, but they're not a dick.
Yeah.
And so they're like people are going to want to work with them, and people are going to want them to do well, and like and the guys who aren't dicks probably give a bit back and help, like, and so it's a big like
it's the case of especially movie stars. A lot of them, you see them on screen so talented, but when you hear like behind the scenes stories,
they
Yeah.
like to
like
eat people.
yeah, like their attitude on set towards other crew members or other actors, and like
Right.
what? But he's or she's so talented.
Right.
How can she do that? Or like,
Yeah,
so yeah,
Right. Which for me, I would say I'm very big on a person's character.
yeah.
I'm okay not hiring walk or working with someone who I know that they have a shitty attitude.
I think
I'm
it's
perfectly fine
that's
with not
especially
working with them.
important in small teams.
Yeah.
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 In
Yeah.
bigger teams, you see
You can get away
glass
with
or it's
that.
like spread
Right.
equally, but in small
Yeah.
teams, like it's very important.
Yeah.
So, for example, for us, it's very important the attitude, the friendship that you build with other colleagues, coworkers.
Right.
So
But you've also got to be real careful as well that like wherever you think your success has come from, it's probably not all you. So like if you
Yeah.
move from if you've been like an amazing trader at one organization, you move to another one, there's no guarantee you're going to be this because if you're like you don't know who's been helping you, like kind of where you got your support from, who's got your back, like all that's whether or not the processes are different. It's all super important. So you can't you can't always just assume you're going to walk in and just dominate.
Exactly. Exactly. Which also kind of is a very good prompt for the next like concept that I want us to discuss. We were actually talking about this before you walked in. Career and passion. I think that in today's day and age, I don't want to say I don't want to use the word young people. I'm still very young, but I find that
yes, you
I'm
are.
still very young. I thought Nick was laughing when I said I'm very young, but I find that people have confused these two things together. It'd be nice to hear what you think. Career is what you're trained in. You don't have to like it, but it's something that you acquire, whether it's like going to a school, a college, or doing something. And your passion is what you genuinely like to do. You don't have to make your passion your career, but you do need to have a career. And I think in this day and age where maybe this is also coming from a sense of being entitled a lot, people feel the need to always enjoy what they do. And I think it's not really good for society. And I'll explain why. Because life will always be ups and downs. So there are times that, there are sunny days, there are low days. If your life is always on that high, I don't know how long you're going to go for. Like, it's just naturally, biologically impossible. So the idea of career and passion, because I would say in the past 6 months, a lot of the conversations I've had with professionals, non-professionals, has come to like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't feel this, I'm not enjoying this. And it's just like it's repeatedly going and going. So it's like, yeah, let's have a conversation about this because I feel like this is a social problem.
Oh,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
that's a very good topic because most of the people, most of my friends that I talk to, they say, I don't know what I want from my career, like what I'm doing right now. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I would say it's almost 90% of the people.
Right.
I rarely hear when a person tells me, oh, I love my job. Like that was my dream. I love it. Most of things you hear like, again, another Monday. Like I don't want to go to
Right.
job. That's the case.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's also part of the issue of like you got to make all your life choices when you're basically a child. So when you're choosing your education path, and then if you get onto higher education, those are like some pretty big decisions to make when you have no life experience, right?
Yeah.
And if like I
Who
know
do you want it to be when you were a kid?
so when I was real small, a fire engine, right? Then I realized.
Engine.
Yeah, because I thought that would be amazing. But I realized then, obviously, as you get older, you learn more, and you're like, oh, I can't be a fire engine.
Yeah.
So then I wanted to be a pilot. Then I realized that like I was not colorblind. What's the other one? Short-sighted. So I didn't have that ruled me out of that. So again, physical problems ruling me out of my first two dreams. Then after that, I decided to go into law. Basically, because like all the movies, it was that weird thing in the 90s where like all the movies were about like action hero lawyers.
Yeah.
And and all of the US presidents were like lawyers. It was like, oh yeah, this must be amazing. And I didn't realize that actually there was a lot of paperwork and a lot of reading involved. But so I made that choice based on watching TV and watching movies. It's just some influence from my parents. And was I passionate about it? No. But am I passionate now about the same things as I was when I was 16? No, different, totally different. So I think it's unrealistic to expect that you're always going to be doing the thing that you love. And I think what you were saying, Tayo, about like you need to have some downs so you can have the ups. You need to have some real like you need to have a boring week to have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Because it's just that by comparison, you got that like that release and you understand what boring is and you understand what exciting is. Because if you don't, it's just every day on the golf course, and it's like every day in paradise starts to then just become boring.
Right.
And that's something I would say a lot of people are afraid of changing careers. Once you're stuck with something, at some point you think, oh, it's too late to change it. Whereas when you're a kid, like yesterday you wanted to be a fire engine, today you wanted to be a pilot. Nowadays, for adults, it's really a tough decision of, okay, I'm going to change my career. And you need to have courage to do it.
Yeah.
And for example, my case, I switched my careers where I was a civil engineer and I switched to be a filmmaker, producer. And everybody asking like, how did you do this? Like you changed your career completely. Yeah, because you followed your passion, you follow what you like to do. Of course, you may fail, you may not be successful, but at least you tried.
How were the skills very different, or did you use the same skill set, or was it like?
I would say the skill set were pretty much similar because, again, as a civil engineer, I was doing project management, and as a producer, it's the same. It's kind of like project management, so you have cross skills that you used and you use till now. So I would say, in my case, it's quite similar, but still very different. And that's what I like.
Yeah.
So for me, it was pretty easy.
Like there are some like legit problems with switching. Like you got to, skills is the obvious one.
Yeah.
Financial is another
That's the
one.
biggest, I would say.
Yeah, like because you're competing with people who've been doing it for a lot longer, and
years.
experience is valued.
Yeah.
And then stuff like networks and like, how if I wanted to just set up an IT company in Shanghai, I don't know anyone in the IT industry, right? So I'd be completely starting from scratch. So it is a big risk, but I think that sometimes that passion isn't necessarily just coming from like what do I like doing? It's almost like that feeling of succeeding at something. So
Yeah.
like if I'm feeling like I'm learning and there's like flow there, or there's
Yeah.
like I'm getting energy from it, I think sometimes that's like, well, no, maybe this is something I should do.
Yeah.
Still means it still doesn't mean every day is going to be like an absolute party, but you might be that like, no, this is I can, even the boring parts of this I'm learning, or I'm getting stimulation from. So it might be that's the separating out, like, oh, I just want to have fun every day,
Yeah.
to I want to do something where it's like it's genuinely getting me going.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because then if you do that, you'll ride through you'll take the financial hit at the start.
Exactly.
When you have a few bad days, you can pick yourself up because
Right.
you're motivated to do it.
Right. And it's kind of like the same for me when I moved away from like management consulting. And I mean, by no means, I didn't hate my job. I love, well, I'm not going to use the word love, but, but
Let's not get carried away.
I enjoyed my time because I got to work with a lot of executives from, Fortune 500 companies, like firsthand, having conversations. I got to problem solve a lot because a lot of the programs that we were working with required me designing sort of like a curriculum to, improve this person's management skills or teamwork or time management and things like that. So I learned a lot of the critical skills that I now apply in our business here. But at the time, I knew that I didn't want to do that for the longest time. So it was like, it's okay to not know what you want to do, but maybe start figuring out what you don't want to do. Because in that way, then it removes this confusion that we're trying to discuss. Which brings me to the second thing in terms of like talking about career and passion and things like that. You still have a career as an HR practitioner and you are still an artist. Did you ever feel the pressure that you have to choose one?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Maybe from time to time. Like, I mean, there are doing something like art. It's it's a lot easier to feel like you're making like little steps and moving forward in a traditional career, because you got stuff like you got your promotion, you've got your the little projects where you'll get a win. When you try and do something that's like a different direction, it's harder to get that, because the way I'd look at it is like I'm halfway through a career in one path, and I'm basically a complete fresh graduate in the other, where you got to kind of like do the internships and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So I kind of like got both experiences at the same time, because they're at different stages of maturity. Yeah, like there were times when I'd be like, I can't do this. I better give it up. But then also over time you realize that you can make some changes.
Yeah.
And I think with experience, you also realize a lot of jobs, there are simpler ways to do things. And once you've learned something, and then when you're applying it, it takes less time, and you can afford to have more commonality between the passion and the career.
Right.
So, but to give an example of that, like as I've developed skills, like so as the art has grown from just painting at night in my house to doing exhibitions, doing interviews, doing work for companies, there's a lot of skill there that I then can put in the other pot, and I use that in the corporate world, which actually makes things a lot easier, and you get a lot better understanding. So there's this cross pollination of skills, which then means that probably haven't felt that pressure for a long time. If someone came and offered me like an enormous amount of money just to do art, then yeah, I could give up the other part, but who knows? I might even just, maybe I do like it. Maybe I need that like,
Or maybe it will become your job and you will start hating it.
exactly. Yeah.
Because again, you started as a hobby, and hobby is something to clear your mind, especially in creative field. For example, as for me, I love theater.
Yeah.
I love to be on stage, but as a hobby.
Yeah.
Would I like to do it full time? I don't know, probably not.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's also escape from my routine, what I do every day, and I love it as a hobby.
Yeah. It's like that thing when you look, sorry, if you look at like an actor and you look at like a movie, look at I don't know, Ryan Gosling, and you think like, I'd love to do that. I'd have passion to do that. I've got like, think about this amazing world he's part of. What you don't see is like how tiring it is, like the effort to learn the skills, to stay in shape, the constant media commitments, all that sort of stuff. Which is
all the promotions they do for movies.
Which is when it's a job, you got all that.
Yeah.
And it's like, rather than this kind of, when it's a hobby, you don't have to do any of that.
Right.
So, but I still have very, like recently, the more as it's grown, that pressure's not been there.
Right.
Because I think there's enough stimulation. Well, like, I think the issue, part of the issue is when you get busy, there's stuff like, leisure time that you lose.
Yeah.
And like, can't go on holiday as much because it's hard to control two demands, right?
Right. Which then brings up the question is like, should passion even be monetized? Because if we're saying we're doing this thing for passions, like, should be just vibes, Should passion always be monetized, or should it even be monetized to begin with? Because if we think about it from that perspective, then maybe it solves the problem of people thinking, I need to enjoy what I do. Because if you can clearly separate, oh, this is my job, this just pays the bills, I don't have to like it. I can hate this for 12 hours a day, and then when I leave there, I do something I really love. I'm not being paid for this, but I enjoy that.
I think you can still, I think there are, across everything, there are still ways to do stuff that isn't money driven. I think I found that as the passion, I don't sell the passion exists somewhere else. There's something, but what was happening was that they got a point where, well, I'm doing stuff that's coming from the passion that like, I'd be crazy if I wasn't able to like re-divert that time and energy. Because if it's like, I could work on this project or have a week off and spend with family. Well, if there's nothing between the two, well, why am I not doing this? And then the passion becomes like in competition with something else. What the financial part can help with is like, well, actually, if I do that, sacrifice now, later we can have a better Christmas holiday or whatever. So I think there's a bit of like an internal economy going on with like, which bits are you actually selling? And there still always needs to be stuff that you're not selling, because once you do that, it becomes like you can put a number to it, which isn't always good.
And also in your case, for example, you do it as a passion, but then somebody sees your work and they want to buy it. Like you didn't think about it, you haven't thought about it, but somebody offers you a price and like, maybe I can sell it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's even worse than that, actually, because no one makes an offer. They say, how much do you want for this? And then you've got to go like, well, what was it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
So that's already like the second question. How, if somebody offers, how do you sell it? And like, how do you sell passion? How do you sell your time that you spend? Because you haven't thought about it and you start thinking like, well, that's a good question. Like,
that's I'd say one of the hardest parts initially is when, especially when with people who are, I see this a lot with people who are painting. And I think because it's not, you get a lot of introverts who are doing that, or people that paint at home. Maybe a bit different if you're singing, because at some point it's obvious to be singing in front of other people. When people show their work, they normally don't have the confidence they don't have confidence in it often. So then you got to deal with people criticizing it, and then you got to deal with people trying to put a value on it. So I mean, I remember the first experience of I displayed some work, and there was a guy came in with his son, and he just went around each one and just went shit, 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 shit. And I was like, oh my god, that's like that, like, but that,
This was here in Shanghai.
yeah, yeah. He'd said it in Chinese, but my Chinese was good. Maybe they've always been saying it's shit, but my vocab wasn't good. But yeah, so that was something where it's like, oh, like that hits you in the gut.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is when people say they want to buy something, and then they say like, how much do you want for it? And you say a price, and you can just see in their face that that price is nowhere near what they think it's worth.
Right.
And in a bad way, it's like, you know, and then that like, oh, they think this is like worth 10% of what I think it's worth. That's hard. But I think that's like, I think that puts a lot of like people who are working like visual arts off. I think just that the fear of public. That public experience and getting that like critique, because people don't like, they can't hide it in their if you post it online, right, people don't tend to slag you off online. They don't, if you post something, if they don't like it, they just don't look at it and they don't comment on it, but you can see it in their face, right, because just their eyes, or you can hear it in their like that's hard to get past. But then once you do, then yeah, like it becomes easier to value it almost, because you get more confident, and you realize like that some people will like it, some people don't, and you can't please everybody, and that you start to produce work that is perhaps a bit more likely to get a positive reaction, rather than something that's just painted for you personally, which you know you love but not everyone else loves. So I think it helps you develop, I think.
Y'all, if you're enjoying these types of conversations, real people, real experiences, take a second to follow the show, subscribe. It does help us to be able to keep these conversations going. Let's move to creativity. This one I'm really interested in. You as an artist, you know, we're gonna keep it low key. You're gonna be doing an interview with a very famous. Are they even famous? Yeah, can I say they're famous?
Yeah.
Okay, right. A very famous what would I even call them at this point? Magazine. Because people don't read magazines anymore.
No,
people don't read magazines anymore.
No one's going to see it.
Right.
But they're still a magazine.
Right.
Yeah. I think online magazine's still a magazine, right?
Right. Okay. Let's talk about creativity. For you, where does that even come from? I, as a filmmaker, as a writer, I think the essence of my filmmaking comes from the experiences that I've had. I do have a tendency to lean more towards human stories. I love real human stories. I love sci-fi as well. I'm not a huge fan of fashion and things like that, or things that kind of promote materialistic gains. So my inspiration is very much driven by the world around me. How do people feel? What can I see? Real human experiences. For you, where does that come from?
I think like for me personally, it's similar. So it comes from the collection of like life experience that like sit inside my head, and the kind of problems that I'm trying to solve, or the things I'm trying to say. So each bit of work is the combination of like my relationship with the world. So that one of the reasons why so most of what I do at the moment is like painting and designing watches. One of the reasons that I like the concept of painting on a watch is that I see it as this like connective tissue between like people who made it in the past. People who made it, wore it to a wedding, gave it to a friend as a present, all that sort of stuff. So I connect that with me, with whoever wears it after me. So it's just like, for me, I'm like trying to tell stories to different people of different things. And that's like from a almost like the sandbox then is huge, because I can talk about anything. What I think is important with creativity, though, is there's some kind of constraint that you got to deal with. So the scale of for me it's the scale of the it's tiny.
Yeah, the dial.
Yeah, the dial's tiny, and also usually I'll try and pin it on old watches, so there's stuff to navigate, or there's choices that I've got to make around like composition and whether or not I use negative space, right? So the kind of or like negative space, leave things blank. Where do I put paint to tell that story? So because of those constraints, it gives you like a focus. It's a lot harder to do when you've just got something that's totally open and so like overcoming those problems means that you have to be creative in solving those problems. I think a lot of people say to me like I'm not creative. They don't say I'm not creative. They say that they themselves are not
Don't feel
creative. They don't feel
creative.
creative. But like I think everyone's got creativity in them, and it's like if there was an EMP went off and there was no electricity, people would find ways to survive because
Right.
they've got the creative capacity. It's just usually they're not trying to do it, so they're not focusing on solving a problem that needs creativity, or they might have some inhibitors, like some mental inhibitors, which are like inhibitors, where it's like there's something there that means I can't connect certain thoughts to certain other
Certain
thoughts, or
things.
like
Yeah.
could be cultural, could be spiritual, could be other pressures. I haven't got the time to think about it. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the creativity comes from. I mentioned before about like I see that I've always been quite happy just jumping into different things. Well, because of that, it means you can just connect a lot of ideas and a lot of his memories, and you without really thinking about it. Because I'm not seeing, well, I can't do that on a watch, or I can't say that with because that doesn't mean this. I can change meaning, I can change context, I can change anything.
Yeah.
Once you get into that mentality, it's actually becomes a lot easier to do what people would say is creative.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I like how you kind of, for you, the dial is very much, I mean, that's the only canvas that you have to work with. And, all the other intricacies around the watch and things like that. For Alex, though, Alex has been creating this past few weeks, ladies and gentlemen. It's called the producer arc. Alex, where does your creativity come from?
I would say my creativity comes from my passion and things I like to do and talk about. And that's, yeah, that's like main, I would say, problem of a lot of people. They think I'm not creative, or they say like, yeah, I think I'm not creative because maybe they don't understand what creativity is and how to apply it. Because if we talk about creativity, we mostly think about science or art, but you can be creative in so many ways, And people sometimes think, yeah, it's not being creative, it's just me. But how you apply your creativity, mostly for me, from things you like to do. And that's the easiest way to apply creativity because you're, again, talking about passion. You apply passion or you use your passion in your creative ways. And
Yeah.
that's my case. That's how I do it.
Yeah. Great. Great. Do you ever feel stuck when you're trying to work
Yeah, all the
on
time.
something?
Yeah,
All the time.
all the time.
Is
Yeah.
it all the time?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons for it. I think sometimes it's like not in the mood, or like I'm like trying to force it. So I like it's like in your brain. This is probably one of the difficulties when it comes to like having to do it as a job, and why sometimes like creative people, like just make creative mistakes, like in your brain, like you're constantly supposed to be doing a balance between like resting and like active thinking about solving a problem, and then just allowing your brain to tick over in the background. It's one of the reasons why, like when you have people have idea in the shower because they're not thinking about the problem. It's just like, oh
Right.
yeah,
Right.
like that I could do that.
Right.
And so you got to have that your brain's got to be allowed to like switch between them. And if you're trying to keep your focus on solving a problem with creativity, I think it's really easy to start to like bring in bad habits, to start to like doubt comes in, and it starts to like you start to try and force it. The idea is not good, but you've got a deadline, you got to get it done. that happens all the time. And I think sometimes the best thing to do is just to disengage and go, right, it's not working. I'm going for a walk. I'm going out for a beer, whatever. And after a while, your brain then settles back into doing what it's supposed to do, and then the idea will come. So yeah, usually I'd say every single piece that I paint, there's a point as well where I lose confidence. I don't know if you guys have it in
film
your world,
space.
yeah, where it's like, oh, this is shit. Like, do we just bin it off or like start again? And sometimes you do. Sometimes you'd be like, nah, it's going. And I'm wiping it clean. I'm starting again.
Right.
But then usually, actually, if you persist, it turns out all right.
Turns out well.
Yeah.
There is a layer of that. I think if it was a personal project, my process involves thinking through like a variety of things of, okay, these are all the things that could possibly go wrong, and I'll have a plan for that. For a personal project. For a commercial project is where these types of feelings come into play, where we've done iteration of an idea 4 or 5 times. And just from a filmmaker standpoint, I can see that what this client is asking to be done is not the best. And, the only thing at that point is we can try to offer like, oh, okay, this is what we think. This is what we think. But once again, that's the nature of commercial projects is you don't necessarily have like a lot of final say, because at the end of the day, the client goes, oh, but I want this, I want that. I can only offer, that doesn't really look good. But if they still want it, okay, this is what you get.
Yeah.
So once it gets to that point of like, this doesn't look good to me, but this client wants this, that's when I start to feel that, oh, man, I'm not really happy with how this is gone. So I think that's the parallel from like a filmmaking standpoint. That only happens to me, especially like in commercials.
Yeah, especially when the client comes to you and tells you, yeah, be creative, do whatever you want. And at the end, when you show your creative work and they say like, I don't like it, let's change it. Like, then why did you tell us to be creative when from the first place you had an idea that you didn't tell us about?
Right.
Yeah.
Which oftentimes, I mean, once again, this is no shade, is a lot of commercial projects are very, very not creative because I can understand from a business standpoint how they're looking at this things. But the idea of combining a commercial, film, a commercial motion picture to be very artistic, those are not two things that usually sit together because they're only just thinking, oh, how's marketing going to use this? How is this going to use this? And things like that. So
it needs to be 6 seconds long.
Exactly. Can you remove that frame, just that one particular frame? It's like that has no bearing on the actual film.
Yeah.
But you have those intricacies there. So commercial filmmaking it's a double-edged sword, honestly. If I had my way, I would only work on branded films that are connected to human stories.
I would say where creativity helps you in terms of working on commercial projects when you pitch the idea.
Yeah.
That's where you have to be creative. Later on, they will trim some edges, they will change it. But the thing is, they want to see your creativity when you pitch it, when you present the idea. How it's going to change later? Yeah, it's already something different. But first, they want to see your creativity.
Yeah.
Jumping back about like it's previous part of the conversation, I think like what will help the three of us in this kind of situation is having had it from both sides. So knowing, like, again, we're going back to what it means to be like multicultural and like cross-functional.
Yeah.
If you can see it a bit from both sides, at least, it's much easier to avoid some of these problems and helps you become successful later because you kind of know, well, I know that they're not, I now know when people are saying like, I would never in my corporate side say to someone, just do what you want, because I know that's not, I know what problems that's going to cause.
Exactly. Which is why we have a process where we go through, first of all, something we call a briefing stage, where if we go into a meeting with a client, they say everything, oh, this is this, there's strategic questions that we ask them from a non-filmmaker standpoint, where it's just like strictly consulting. It's like, okay, why do you want to do this? What is the bottom line? What is the objectives and all of this? And we take that document and put it into like a brief. And the reason we do that is for the sake of alignment, so that we have, there's a document that shows that this is what you identified as the problem, and this is the solutions that we're going to offer you. And oftentimes it works, where the briefing is there. We then go into something like a proposal that includes like a director's treatment, talks about everything and blah, blah, blah. And in most cases, we're fine. But there's still like some exception of like one or two clients that was just maybe as a result of like a different team structure. The people who started the project are not the ones who are finishing the project. And so this person is coming on at a time where they have no background to like what was discussed or anything. And they're like, oh, but I don't want to like, well, this was already agreed with your team.
Yeah.
Before everything started off, so I do agree. There's a difference in how things are being perceived here and outside of China. And I think it's just like optimizing processes once again to like figure out what is the best way that we can quickly get to the end goal of what we want to try and do.
Yeah.
And I think overall for creativity, right, is in your opinion, what does it mean to be creative? Because I feel it's a very broad concept.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be creative? Because like Alex was saying, it could mean anything, literally. But what do you think it is?
For me, it's more about being creative is more like a thought process, or the thought style, and it's one where like, are you able to almost like not follow exactly what's been done before, and doing something where there's some novelty to it. Now, the reason I'm saying it like that is like, you can't do that for everything. So like when you're a creative person, it's not like every day in every single aspect of your life, you're doing something that's novel. There's not enough energy in your brain to do that. It's more like, have you got some facet of your life where you can do enough of it that it starts to generate stuff? And I think I'm lucky in that I found an area where I can do that. However, I used to be quite creative when I was doing HR in the HR world, because I tend to, if there was a process there, or if there was a policy, I'd tend to look at it thinking, well, can we do it in a better way? And I think I see that as creativity as well. So it's not like, I think Alex touched on it before, it's not like only artists, musicians, actors can be creative.
Right.
It can happen anywhere.
Right.
But I think you become creative when you start to tend to do that you can focus it, and you've got that confidence to keep going through with it. I know some people that don't like thinking creatively because it's risky. Like you have that, you can annoy people. Like, why don't you just follow the process? What are you doing? Stop wasting our time. It can become, there's an emotional element to it. So I said before, once you share with other people, you can lose confidence easily. So it's a risky space to be in, personally and professionally. But I think people who think themselves creative have got to a point where they're comfortable doing that, or they know how to deal with it and can make it work for them.
It leads me to the next question that I want to ask you is, I've seen your collection. I'm still yet to make a decision on the one that I want. But how do you decide, or what makes something valuable to you? Because a lot of the watches that you have, they're old. And I don't think a lot of people would see the value in them. Well, Gen Z obviously won't be seeing any value in that. But then you take these things and you make them into something brand new. So how do you see this old piece of item and say, oh, that's valuable to me?
So I think for me, like, value is something that's it's a perception thing, right? So like something's valuable when it's scarce, or if it's like it's got some like some important function it can do, or it's got something that you can't easily regenerate. So so I'm thinking in my head stuff like everything from gold to like rare minerals to like to antiques that you're not going to not that can't be remade. There's like these are things that like that value is there, or the value in the pot is much higher when it's a pot than when it's broken, right? Even though it's exact all the same stuff,
Right.
but it's become imperfect and it's not functional. So the value the value can change according to whether or not, just literally based on human perception. Obviously, it's linked to like I'm talking about like emotional value, not necessarily financial value, because it's like of course that closely tracks, right? But with these watches, right? They were valued when they were made, and they were valued when someone bought them because a lot of the stuff is like 1960s, 70s. People would have paid a lot more money for them than they are worth now.
Yeah.
And they probably would only have one piece that was theirs. Over time, it's a functional object that's been used as intended, and because it's been used and intended and not kept in a museum, it's gotten broken and withered and dirty, right? The value completely goes. On top of that, they're not the most efficient and effective way of telling time, which is literally what they're there to do.
Yeah.
Phones, smartwatches, so there's really, they don't have a lot going for them from just the object.
Yeah.
But I still see that there's value in there because they're a connection to what was. And there's an importance. Say something like a mechanical watch that people have put effort and energy into to basically to accurately record time, which is something that was very, very important to people and still is.
Yeah.
They put all that energy in, that's all locked in there, and they're like, that history's there.
Right.
You can't just create that.
Right.
The problem is I don't know exactly what it was, so I can't tell who owned it. I can't tell who made it. It's kind of, I've got to guess.
Right.
But for me, it's like when I repaint it, it's basically saying, okay, I can make it look good again. I can tell that story, which is really where the value is, and I can put a bit more value in it because it's been through me. So then hopefully the next person who has that will see it as something that's like, oh yeah, I get that. I can think about, the 60, 70 years ago when it was what life was like, and it gives me something to connect me to the past. The bonus is also if I can tell them something about themselves. So if it's like, if there's something that speaks to you and it like adds something to you personally, then again, there's value there. So the whole thing is just human.
Right.
That's why like value for an individual is very subjective.
Yeah.
You can literally put value on anything that has a background story. Like for me, I was once making a video about my trekking shoes, and for me it has great value because I hiked like in these shoes for so many years.
How many years?
Like 7 or 8 years.
What shoes?
Trekking shoes.
Tracking shoes.
Yeah. Because I
wore
like
a pair
hiking.
of shoes for 7 years?
Yeah. Yeah. My tracking shoes, like, man, I still have it. I brought it from Germany.
To China.
To China, of course.
And they let them through customs? They're not like,
Apparently,
are they not like an animal now?
Like, it has great value for me. Please,
Some rare
don't
fungus.
take it away.
Do they still work?
They do work. I mean, German quality.
Okay.
Plug in.
7 years is a long time.
I mean, for a good pair of tracking shoes, it's
Great.
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
All right. I mean, I don't have shoes for 7 years, but lastly, let's talk about AI.
AI.
We'll wrap up the show with that. Do you think AI affects, like, let me combine two questions together. Do you think AI affects human creativity? And if yes or no, then I guess the question is, what stays uniquely human then?
The answer is yes, in a sense that I think it does. There's a negative. There's a lot of damage it does, individually and collectively. But I think it also gives some opportunities to create creativity. So the damage is it it does replace a lot of the potentially replaces a lot of the outputs, right? So you could sit here and say, if I'm Sam Altman, I'm probably saying in 10 years' time there'll be an art gallery full of pieces all developed by an AI, if not tomorrow, right? The problem with that is there's copyright issues with that. There's based on the data they're trained from, it is replacing the market for humans to be creating stuff, because if you want a piece of art in your hotel, then it's much easier to go and create it on AI than to pay an artist to do it. But also on an individual basis, when you're using AI, you're not going through the cognitive processes needed for creativity. You're skipping them out.
Right.
Now, some people, like I use AI quite a lot, and I'm hopefully know the good times to use it and the times when it's going to do me damage from a thought process perspective. I think if I'm coming out of university now, I haven't got that cynicism and an knowledge about what's needed. So I think there's a big risk there. The benefit is when there aren't people who are creating art galleries full of AI stuff, because who the hell wants to go and see that? Because it's not. We talked before about value being one of the important things. If something can just be created instantly, and there's no effort, there's no constraint, there's no they haven't had to spend 30 years learning their craft. If AI can just replace all of that, well, that's cool for the first time you see it, but it doesn't have that it's real difficult to get any meaning from it. So I do think that the more slop-filled the world becomes with filler, images, music, movies, event at some point soon, the more then people will start to look and say, well, actually, yeah, okay, I know you've generated that by AI, but I'm more interested in what the humans can do. And I think the obvious places to see this are on stuff like YouTube and Spotify, where it's you can go and create any music you want through AI. You could print off a painting and put it on the wall. You can do that now, but who's doing that? Because it's not interesting. Yeah. There's no struggle. There's no time and craft that's gone into it. Right. So yeah, okay, it exists, but who cares? And I still think people will then look to stuff that's human generated, or at least largely human generated. There'll be a pocket of AI stuff that, there's AI artists who will be creating some super interesting stuff, but I think it'll become a lot more niche rather than it becomes the solution for everything. Who's going to pay for it?
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson has spoken. AI is slop. Great to have you, buddy. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll try to wrap it up here because Nick is saying 2 minutes. Don't stop the conversation, Nick. But great to have you. Thanks for sharing your time, your knowledge, and everything with us. And with that, we will wrap up the show. Once again, if you guys have enjoyed this episode, you can share, comment. We have more conversations like this coming. And once again, this show is being produced by Limecut Studios here in Shanghai. We are an original storytelling company that focuses on human stories that connects to real humans, real people. So if you're into all that kind of thing, stay tuned. And it's a wrap, y'all. It's a wrap.
Great talks. Great talks.